what is leadership? I mean, is leadership a state? Is it a aura?
Right.
Or is it a set of mechanisms and behaviors that demonstrate I'm a leader?
So I think, we're talking about this definition of what it means to be a leader. Would you say a leader is someone who models behavior?
To me, the leadership thing is silent. It's not about what you're saying. It's really more about how you act. I'm going to say something provocative to you, and you're going to hate me for saying this.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, you are. And I'm wondering if even I should say it.
You can say it. A little bit about my background is I started in education, so I got an education degree.
Okay.
And then I went from education because I made no money, and I also didn't want to be an administrator. I really wanted to have impact on people, which at the time was kids, which that passion hasn't changed. Then I went into the business world. It started in retail. I had a family-owned store that I went to work in.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me.
Yeah,
okay.
And so I saw what it looked like to run a family business, to work in it, to deal with some of the beliefs people have about you when your dad owns the business.
Yeah.
So I worked harder than probably anyone that worked there at the time to kind of prove myself.
Yeah.
And then I got recruited to corporate where I left the family business, which was kind of a stressful time because I felt bad. But my dad was great. He encouraged me to
Oh, you felt bad leaving the family business because you felt obligated to your family?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I felt like he'd invested in me, spent a lot of money training me. And I felt like I was kind of abandoning ship. But I wanted to go spread my wings, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And I went to work for corporate, and we were independent contractors. And it was a great experience. So I worked on the wholesale side of that industry, and I did that I would think we were in the second largest territory at the time. I don't even think I realized at the time, I don't think I even realized how much responsibility I actually had.
Yeah.
And because I was pretty young. And then from that, I moved here and worked for the same company. Then got married, and my ex-husband and I were both working for the same company. The economy wasn't great in the early 2000s, so he kind of pushed me out a little bit because the territory wasn't really requiring two of us. So I left. I ended up staying home 5 years with our kids. And then from that, my kids were about, I entered the realm of parenting, raising kids, leading kids. And what I was finding, I would have always considered myself an extremely patient person. And what I was finding when my kids reached that, you said you have a grandkid, the 3-year-old, when they were about 2 and 4, I felt like I was losing my mind. I was like, I am not patient.
Join the army of all parents who've ever had kids.
And I was like, this is not what I pictured. And I have my oldest is he's 17 now, going to be 18 in a month.
Yeah.
Amazingly strong-willed, which are all the characteristics that will make him successful. But it challenged me as a parent, and I was trying to control. I was trying to control my child. I was trying to make him do the thing I needed him to do, and he could have cared less. And I just felt like I was failing. And I think a lot of parents have that feeling. And so it led me on a path of seeking a parenting philosophy at the time, or a method, or a psychologist that could help fix my child to make my life easier. And on that journey, we came across a school here in Kansas City. It's called Bambini Create TV. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it.
Nope.
Highly recommend it if you have great kids. It's a school that a mom had mentioned to me when I was venting, and she said, go check it out. They have a different approach to behavior management, which is how she explained it to me. So I literally got in my car, leaving the gym that day after this mom had shared that with me, called the school, scheduled a tour, went to the school. It was amazing. It wasn't just about the behavior part of it. It was the whole program.
Yeah.
It was the aesthetic of the school. It's beautiful. It looks like a children's museum. It's not sterile. Like a lot of schools can be sterile or very primary in their colors and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I toured the school with the owner, Brianne's her name, and I was so excited. I just felt like I stumbled onto something that I'm like, all kids need this. And so we enrolled the kids. We had no plan and no budget at the time to put them both in private school, but we figured it out and we did it. And I just started researching, and it started with a parenting philosophy called conscious discipline. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Nope.
So it's a parenting philosophy or philosophy that's used in a lot of schools for discipline or behavior management. And it's very science-based as far as how our brains work. So it started there, but then it evolved in me reading a lot of business books, reading a lot of self-help books, and just kind of immersing myself into educating myself on human behavior. And I started to see a pattern where it was brain science. It wasn't about control. It wasn't about you can't make another human being do anything. It was about understanding what's driving behavior. And so that's how I ended up here now and doing what I'm doing.
Well, I've always struggled with the difference between managing and leading. Mm-hmm. And I heard you say just now a few times, behavior management. My confusion is, you can tell I'm confused now.
Yeah.
We're trying to control behavior, behavior control. You used a term that I didn't know before, to manage behavior, but yet you teach leadership. What's the difference between, I think I know the difference,
right?
But in your educated world, what's the difference?
So, and it's funny because I started, that's what drew me there, was I was looking for a form of behavior management. But what came from that experience was I can't manage anyone else's behavior. I really can't. I can approach it to try to understand what's driving it, and I can control my own behavior.
But then why does every corporation in the world focus on KPIs? Aren't KPIs designed to control or at least influence your behavior? Managing your behavior around specific accomplishments that are called KPIs?
Right. We can only, truly, so what all of this has led me to is what I like to call it is lead yourself first leadership.
Okay.
We can't, if we're running, so to kind of go back a little, what I started seeing, so I started educating myself, right? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, gosh, this is helping me. Yeah. This is helping me with, and there's probably a better word for it. I say behavior management, but I'm not actually managing the behavior. It was helping me navigate parenthood. Let's just say that. It was helping me navigate and have more success in getting my kids to do the things I needed them to do. It's just the way and what was changing was my communication, my approach, as far as how I was motivating them. Instead of trying to control, my thoughts changed to how do I create an environment, or how do I set this up to get them to most likely choose? Because as parents, we don't want, the traditional discipline model is extrinsic motivation or fear-based, right? Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do. Do it because I said so. Whereas the goal would be, we want our kids to make good decisions when we're not around, right? Yeah. We want them to be capable, functioning, resilient human beings. So I was understanding what motivates humans in the context of working with children. And when you look at early childhood development, the school started at age 2. So I was working with 2-year-olds. So I ended up working in the school. So I went from education to business, back to education, but in a very unique environment. And this environment was not teacher-led, it was child-led. The teacher we would put out provocations, we would ask interesting questions, but we were pulling the knowledge from the child. So I was learning about behavior and education in the same way. And then I was taking those things, the tools I was learning in that environment, home and my marriage at the time, and using some of the strategies, whether it be boundaries, whether it be assuming the best in someone, curiosity over assumption, asking questions, not taking people's behavior personal, not thinking because someone's having a bad moment, it's about me. So I was applying all these in every relationship in my life, especially the challenging ones, and I was seeing how that was helping me own my own behavior, become less reactive, so leading myself. And that is that parallel. So I don't think you can't train someone to be a leader that doesn't want to be a leader, but we're all a leader to someone. If we have kids, we're a leader. If we're a teacher, we're a leader. If we're a business owner, we're a leader.
I guess it still comes back, Kori, to how you define what is leadership. I mean, is leadership a state? Is it a aura?
Right.
Or is it a set of mechanisms and behaviors that demonstrate I'm a leader? And because I'm still,
no, you're
confused.
Good. Yeah, I like it. This is good.
Because I hear management and I hear empathy, which is great.
Right.
But when you're talking about children,
mm-hmm.
I think it's a very different dynamic, especially when it's your own children,
right,
than in a workplace. These are not my children. They don't owe me any unconditional love or respect or duty, obligation, loyalty, all of the above. Children tend to, right?
Well, children are going to love us unconditionally, even if we're not doing our best as a
Well,
parent.
you assume that that's the case, and you leverage that. Mommy said so, right? And
which I don't
Daddy.
recommend.
Well, I can understand from what you said so far. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
But when they're 2 or 3 or 4 years old, trying to give them the logical explanation as to why the behavior you're trying to modify is not appropriate for whatever's happening in the moment.
Right.
I have, at least my own experience has been, that's a little hard to communicate to a 3-year-old who doesn't get that. Everything is emotion-driven, not logic-driven. And even though sticking your finger in that socket will give you a shock that might hurt you, until they actually go do it on their own, they may or may not believe you because there's 100 other things you told them not to do that didn't harm them. And they're wondering, is mommy full of baloney or is mommy really trying to help me here? And out of respect for mommy, I'll do what she asked me to do, even though I don't understand what's the point. How many times have you heard your kids, because I can tell you how many times I heard my own 3 daughters tell me, well, Dad, that's really unfair. Well,
like
unfair to whom? It's unfair to you, but it's fair to me because I said so.
Right.
I decide what's fair. You can be unhappy about it, but you can't yourself decide what's fair. That's my decision. Now, in a workplace, how's that different?
Okay, there's a couple things. So my brain goes squirrels in my head. So first thing is the world is not fair. And I have a theory. I'm going to give you this theory because I think it might help as I'm trying to articulate this. So I have a theory. I call it the pendulum theory.
Okay.
Where I believe we were raised probably in similar environments where, again, do what I say, not as I do, shame, blame, maybe blame, or don't be mad. Why are you crying? Suppressed emotion. And go figure it out. Kids weren't the center of the universe, which I think there's a lot of good in that, right? There's some good things that that there are some amazing skills we learned in that, where we have grit, we have coping skills, we are resourceful. We don't think someone's going to fix everything or save us or do everything for us. So we have to figure out either how to solve our problem or how to deal with the consequences of it. And those were oftentimes natural consequences. So I think those skills were great. But what we have now are adults with a lot of suppressed emotion that are unaware, and they're functioning on autopilot, and they're just parenting on autopilot and now we're overprotecting and over-saving our kids. We're not letting them fall down and skin their knee. We're getting involved in their social interactions, and we're micromanaging every aspect of their life. The helicopter parent, the lawnmower parent, and that is not good. So it's gone from over here all the way over here.
Yeah, I would agree with 100% of what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Jonathan Haidt book, The Coddling of the American Mind, is absolutely right on. And I think if kids today have more mental health issues than any prior generation, it's generally because of that helicopter parenting. Don't let you fall down and skin your knee. We're going to keep you from doing that. And although I do believe that there's a level of empathy that goes too far.
Yes.
I feel your pain, son. I'm not going to let you suffer, and I'm going to fix it for you.
Yeah, no, that's not
because I
helpful.
feel your pain. Right? It's so unfair, too. I agree, son. That's really unfair.
Yeah.
Your teacher should have given you a better grade. Your coach should have started you at shortstop and let you bat fourth because you're the best player on the team. And I don't know why he wouldn't let you do that. I'm actually going to call your coach and say something to him because I think it's really unfair the way you're being treated. And parents do too much of that.
They've inserted themselves in the lives of their children to a fault.
Not in the behavior that leads to an outcome, but in the outcome itself.
Correct.
Right?
100%.
And you're advocating for managing the behavior that leads to an outcome, but how do you do that when the outcomes are, hard to predict, even if your kid does all the right things?
Right.
The outcome isn't always what they expected, nor what you might have expected. You did the work.
Right. I think so we've got these two spectrums, right? We've got the parent that maybe was maybe could have been involved a little bit more, but there was some good that came of it because of the grit, the resourcefulness, and those things. And then we have the overprotective parent. So where I think we need to find, or what we need to find, the spot we need to land on is the middle, which is that empathy piece. Empathy as in, it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be upset. I can understand why you feel that way. But we need critical thinking. So we need to start asking and stop telling kids. We need to ask them really good, really intentional questions about, why do you think you feel this way? Or why do you think your friend's not talking to you? Or why do you think you got in trouble? Because when we are curious and we approach difficult moments and acknowledge the emotion, and yes, it's there, it's real, but that doesn't give you a reason or doesn't make it okay if the behavior's not okay. But let me help coach and guide and lead you to how we solve this problem. And in today's world with technology and the mistakes kids are making, there's a kiddo right now that might that is in this community that has posted something they shouldn't have, and it got shared, and now the kid that shared the image, it was a mistake. Their brains aren't fully developed.
Yeah.
There's going to be some severe consequences for that. I mean, like law enforcement's involved, and it is scary. And I think parents jump in and get too involved before we really look at the bigger picture of both kids were at fault, right? The image shouldn't have gotten put out there. It shouldn't have been shared. But let's coach these kids and teach them and help them work through this. Have a little grace that we're navigating something parents have never had to navigate.
Who was hurt by it?
Well, that's to be determined. I mean, I think there's a lawsuit right now.
So somebody in the image was hurt by this.
Correct.
And the other two perpetrators, the one who posted it first and the one who
Well,
reposted
the person, my understanding, and I don't have all the details,
Yeah.
I'm just giving context for things that are happening out there because this is very common. There's been suicides because of it, where a kiddo sends an image, because there's people too that will do things to get the image, right? And the kids just don't understand why they don't understand how these decisions can have this type of impact. And so the kiddo, I think, being funny, I don't know if it was a screenshot on a conversation, but he was responsible for getting the image out there of himself, but then someone else shared it. So the kiddo that was hurt, the kiddo that put the image out there is the one that's being hurt by it because it was shared with so many. But I think there needs to be accountability to both parties, right? Like you can't put images out there like that.
Right.
Well, so both.
Okay. Well, let's shift to the corporate world, because I know that you speak at different corporate events, and because I think that leadership in the corporate world, well, it's my opinion, is very different than the parental world.
Right.
And I think I said that earlier. I think that there's a duty that children have to their parents, that they will follow a certain level of management, call it leadership if you want, simply because they're your child and they have a duty loyal to you. That's not necessarily true of employees, right? And having started 3 companies, hired a lot of people, had good relationships and not great relationships, and I've had things work and things not work. I always felt like, and I think a lot of people in my shoes still have this imposter syndrome thing that we deal with. Like, I don't know why you're asking me what to do, because I sure as hell don't know either. And
so you're telling me that never goes away? Yeah,
it doesn't go away. My favorite phrase in my last company, because I was 56 when I started it, was, I don't know. People would come to me with a problem. What should we do about this, Don? I'd go, I don't know. You've had a week to think about this, because it probably took you a week to work up the courage to come in and tell me something was screwed up, right? Mm-hmm. Well, about 3 days ago. Okay, 3 days. I've had, 5 minutes. How the hell do I know? What would you do? Why haven't you done it? What are you waiting for?
Right.
Because there's trade-offs. Okay, so in everything in life there's trade-offs, right?
Right.
So why didn't you? I'll give you a really simple example. I hired a lady who's a great friend today, and she did great work for us. But in the beginning, she had come over from the University of Kansas Medical Center. And I'm naming names because this is a cultural thing that I think that, like the University of Missouri or the University of Kansas Medical Center, should do a better job of. She had worked in the orthopedics department as a medical assistant. Came to us as an office manager, biller, kind of a jack of all trades. When you start doing a startup, you got everybody's doing everything, right? I'm emptying the garbage and vacuuming the floors on the weekends, and things like that. My wife's coming in and she's hanging up the artwork, and everybody does everything, right? And so this lady, Erin is her name, she one day said that there were pharmaceutical reps coming in to teach our nurses about a new drug. And I said, oh, okay. She said, was it okay if I order lunch? And I go, of course, order lunch. I thought that was the end of the conversation. And then she comes back to me, she goes, so what should I get for lunch? I said, I don't know. What do you want for lunch? Well, we could get Panera, we could get this, we could get that, we could get that. Okay, which one do you want? I go, I'm not even going to be here. This lunch isn't for me. What do the nurses want? What do you want? I don't know. How would I know, right? And I said, just go take care of it.
Yeah.
And I had given her my credit card or whatever. Or we had I forget. Anyway, it wasn't a half an hour later, she came back and she goes, okay, it's going to cost about this much. Is that okay? And I'm like, Erin, it's all okay. Stop asking me, please. Take care of it. I said right from the jump, just take care of it. If I didn't trust you to take care of it, I wouldn't have said, take care of it. And so later on, after the lunch was over, I'd gone to my meeting. I came back, middle of the afternoon. I know she'd been thinking about this all day because I could just see in her eyes when she came in. She goes, I want to apologize. I said, why? She said, I'm just not used to having any latitude to do anything. She said, when I worked at the university, she said, if I got a sandwich that was lacking mustard or mayo for the right doctor, people would be throwing clipboards at me and yelling at me over it. She said, I've never had the latitude to do anything like that. And I said, well, here, Aaron, you do. And I want you to embrace it because that's going to be your life from now on. Because if you ever ask me again 5 times what to do for lunch, I said, then I just go do it myself.
Well, and I think in a lot of environments, people micromanage, right? They do try to control everything, which makes people that have come from different environments fearful of making choice. And so you were talking about what is the difference between kids and adults. I think in the workplace, it's no different than working with a child. The language is different, right? Like obviously, because I worked with my own, I've obviously used these things with my own kids, but I've used them with other people's kids. So not just kids that are going to really care what I think, but if somebody's struggling at work or somebody's running late on a project or they're frazzled, and we come at them and we're going, what's going on? And we, put them on the defense because we are maybe not having a little bit of empathy or approaching it with understanding. I don't mean coddle. I don't mean baby. Like that is not what I'm talking about. But if we just approach people and have a little positive intent and assume the best, what happens is they become, their guard is let down, and we're going to get a more accurate representation of what's going on. We're going to get more information, and information is power in the sense of, now I know what I'm working with. Are they just not capable? Is this just too much? Because if that is, they need to go. Or are they coachable? And they just don't know, per your point, they don't know that this environment's different.
Yeah.
Or that, maybe there was a misunderstanding, or maybe I wasn't clear as a leader. Because I think sometimes there can be a disconnect, right? Communication is the part where communication falls apart is how is it interpreted?
Well, but when I said to her, just take care of it, that wasn't enough for her.
Right.
And it was enough for me.
Right.
Because what else would I say? Well, go get the menu, then come back to me and tell me what the choices are, and then go order the stuff, and then come back and tell me what they're going to charge you before you run my credit card, because it might be too much, and we have to eliminate the chips or the extra cookies. I'm going to tell you to do that. I mean, did she really think that I cared that much?
Right.
I know in her heart she knew I did not. And
she was just having a hard time.
She couldn't process that. And it's not a fault of hers. It's a conditioning thing that she's been through in an environment where if she did step out of line, she would be berated for it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a negative culture that she came from that I now needed to overcome with her, because she couldn't see the difference or wasn't willing to accept the difference. She couldn't trust the difference because he was afraid, well, if I piss off Don too, then he's going to yell at me as well. And, but I felt badly that she couldn't function with the simple instruction of just take care of it. And that to me is the difference between managing and leading. Okay. If I felt that she couldn't or wouldn't embrace the notion of just take care of it as a theme, I would have had to manage her through that process. And I've always said to everybody I've ever worked with, I'm a pretty good leader. I'm not a good manager. If you expect me to manage you, you're in the wrong place. If you expect me to hold your hand, coach you, encourage you, pat you on the head every time you do something reasonable, or wonder why you didn't do something that you probably should have done and ask you nicely why you didn't do it, you're in the wrong place.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
how do you feel about in the workplace? I think sometimes, and this is true in parenting, so this would be a parallel. I think as parents, when things are going well, we don't always comment on that, right? Like my kids are behaving, they're listening.
Yeah.
It's just going well.
There's nothing to say.
We don't give it attention. So one of the things I focus on is attention, because whatever we focus on grows. So in the workplace, I think this could be true. Things are going well. We're not acknowledging it. We're not focusing on it. It's just going well. But what do we notice? We notice when things aren't going well or something has got, been missed or overlooked.
Sure.
And then we give that a lot of attention. So one of the things I talk about, and it works, is if we focus on what's going well, it will naturally encourage more of that.
I think you're right from a management perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that equates to leadership. To me, leadership is silent. To me, leadership is an environment. It's a way of understanding that there's something I'm involved in here where there's an individual involved
Mm-hmm.
who I respect, who I like, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
Want to be like, want to perform for, want to deliver for, because I want to. And that, to me, is the kind of leadership that when I've been inspired by people, it's because I wanted to be like them,
Right.
or I wanted to perform like them, or I wanted to be regarded like them. I worked for a young guy when I first started in the semiconductor industry back in 1980, and I was 26 years old. And he was maybe 30-ish, 31. He was older than me, but not old by any
Right.
stretch, right? But a good-looking guy, charming as could be. I mean, huge smile. Everybody would light up when he walked in the room. You could tell immediately that whatever he said, people were laughing with him, watching him to see if it's okay to laugh, if it's okay to, cry or whatever. And I thought, I need to be like that guy. I want to have those skills. I want to have the silent skills.
So like the skill of influence?
Yeah,
Okay.
the skill of, if I can communicate, this is how I've always looked at the 3 companies I've started.
Mm-hmm.
If I can communicate the vision in a way that inspires others to feel about that vision the same way I feel, then I'm doing my job, because they'll want to do the best they can. They'll want to come to work and do what needs to be done. They will deal with the problems that they know I'm too busy to deal with, because the other thing that I've always told people and that work for me is we all have an oar in the water and we're all pulling. None of
Right.
us are sitting here beating the drum. The drum is the mission. The drum is the vision. And you follow that beat because you hear it in your own head, because I've described to you why this is important, and you subscribe to that. You bought into that. And if you don't buy into it, it's okay. It's okay. But again, if you expect me to hold your hand and drag you kicking and screaming to success like everybody else, don't expect that. Don't expect that.
Right.
Accept what you're getting. Because if I'm paying you a reasonable wage, this is the bargain. I pay you to do a specific function. So long as you come in and deliver on that function, what you want to do beyond that is, really up to you. It's not up to me. It's not my job to drag you kicking and screaming to some great career, to make you better than you already are. I think you're great already, and I'm paying you as a result of that. That should be acknowledgement enough. If you need me to remind you day in and day out how freaking awesome you are, you're in the wrong place, because I'm not going to do that.
Well, and that's no different than the parents saving and protecting. And I think we have created a culture of young individuals.
Right, and if I need to tell my kids every time they scribble on a piece of paper how freaking awesome they are as an artist, I think I'm doing them a disservice. I don't think I'm helping them at all.
And that's not what that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when they do not, that's too much. That is not what we need more of. But when we notice, we do need to stop on occasion and notice the things that are going right. Like I have teenagers, and they're driving and I want them to be safe. So they get home safe one night, and I'm like, hey, thanks for being responsible. Thanks for getting in on time. I noticed that. And I might not even say thanks. Like, I noticed you were home on time. Just noticing it. I don't want to inflate it. I don't want to create some
Well, you shouldn't have to thank them for behaving the way they were supposed to in the first place, right?
And that's why I changed that. I wouldn't say thank. I think noticing it. So one of the words
acknowledging
is
it.
Acknowledging
is one
it.
thing.
I see it. I notice it.
Yeah.
I noticed you were frustrated, and I noticed you figured your problem out. So my kids come to me all the time. And my son started a business. He started a window cleaning business. And he does not, your kids don't listen to you. They don't think you know anything.
What's his name?
So Max.
Okay. No, I just met a young guy who started the window washing company.
Oh, really?
His name is Caleb. So I was just wondering if
So his name's Max. And, he's got, I love it. He has big ideas. And the things that trigger me most in him are the things that he's very much like me in a lot of ways. And so I'm trying to be helpful to him. And then I just stop myself. I'm like, he's got to go out there. He's got to realize it's not as easy as he thinks it is. He's not going to be spoon-fed customers. He's got to go feel the pain of that.
Yeah.
And then he's going to come back. And I'm like, and instead of me telling him, he's coming and whining to me or telling me all of the things that are going wrong and he wants to quit. I'm like, well, wait a second. Is this important to you? Do you want to work for someone else, or do you want to own a business someday? Because if you want to own a business, do you think that's easy or hard? I ask him questions because my goal with the questions is to get him to critically think and solve his problem.
Yeah.
In the workplace, when she comes to you that first time, even, obviously you got there, but even just saying, hey, is there anything else? I've given you this. We're good. I trust you. Just go take care of it.
Yeah.
Just saying that, like, maybe even more emphatically that first time, like, or is there something else you need for me to feel okay about this? Or is there some reason that I'm not being clear?
Yeah.
Asking a question, because now she's having to think and be accountable and get that out there right then, so you're not wasting your time with her coming back over.
What would my question have been? I mean, in the middle of all of that, my question would have been, have I not been clear about the latitude I just gave you?
Yeah, like, is there something else you need from me? Because I'm totally good with you.
Yeah, because I thought I was perfectly clear about it, and if there was any question, you should have asked me in the moment.
Right.
Right? Do you want me to use the debit card that I already have? Yeah, okay. Or do you care what we get? No, I don't care.
Yeah.
Do you care how much money I spend? Well, no, not really, but don't go crazy. She could have asked for more guidance, and I think that's a personality thing. So part of what we were talking about early on was, can everybody be a leader of the same quality based on their character, their personality? There's the type A's and the type B's,
right.
and I worked in Silicon Valley for a number of years, and how do you tell the difference between a technical extrovert and a technical introvert? The extrovert actually looks at your shoes, while they're talking to you, and
right.
and so, I've been around all different types of folks in the 71 years I've traversed this planet, and I have found, at least my personal experience has been, that there are very, very few people that I would let lead me.
Right.
And maybe that's a character flaw of mine. It may well be. A lot of people have told me, you're unemployable. Well, I worked for A&B for 10 years. They thought I was super employable. They were pretty pissed when I left. I was one of the highest paid field people they had in the company. And, they took me from Chicago to here to Southern California and wanted me to go to Northern California, the epicenter of where everything happened. And in each place I went, I had, successively greater authority and responsibility. So it seemed to me like they really liked the fact that I worked for them.
Right.
And I thought I did a really good job working for them. And I believe I did, based on the metrics and everything else that I was supposed to be measured by. But later on, when I was starting my own companies, is where I had the imposter syndrome, because I found that being an employee was actually a lot easier than being the employer.
Dealing with a lot more personalities.
Well, it's a lot. Well,
and
especially when you're raising venture capital and things like that, and that first investment check you get, it changes everything. I mean, your world all of a sudden shrinks, and what was a hobby or an aspiration is now an obligation, right?
Right.
And so there's pressures and stresses that come with that. And delivering and, getting the job done is, well, now we kind of have to do it now. We were just playing around before, but yeah, we're not playing around anymore. And I always felt like I needed people around me who felt the same way I did about what we were doing. And yeah, it's unfair in some respects that I'm the founder and I've got more shares than everybody else, but that doesn't mean I won't give you shares too. I mean, the last company, I gave shares to everybody. And when the big venture capital firm came in, they're like, why do nurses have stock options? They don't even know what they are. And I go, you're right, they don't know what they are, but one day they will. Mm-hmm. And when they realize what it was that I gave them, then they'll understand, what jumping on board the mission I gave them, was all about. And I wanted that. And, we created, 12 or 15 millionaires out of our employees. And to me, that was the greatest of all accomplishments. I can't name another thing that even comes close to that.
Well, it's impact, right?
Isn't that what we all want to have, right? They say, well, the unexamined life is not worth living. Yeah, but, it's kind of like when I play pickleball every morning. I tell people, yeah, it's fun playing. It's a lot more fun winning. I'm sorry. I'm competitive. I hate losing. Even if, and
that's why you're
even if I'm having fun doing it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just my personality type. Yeah. But I think that's what also inspired the people around me, is I don't just like doing, I like winning. I like winning big. I mean, I sat down with the Digital Health KC people a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, explaining what I'm working on right now. And they're like, okay, this is way too big. I said, it's too big for you. It's not too big for me. I already built $1 billion company. What's wrong with building another one? Yeah, but Don, this is so, yeah, I know. Okay, it's too big. It's okay. I can go, I'll take care of it. I don't need you to help me with it. I just wanted you to be aware of it. And that's basically how that conversation went. I don't look for help when I start something. I don't look for support, like these entrepreneurial support organizations and things like that. I don't need inspiration. I need other people who can be inspired by me and what I'm doing. That's who I need. I don't need anybody to inspire me. I don't need anybody to hold my hand.
So to go alongside you, like on the journey, to be part of it.
Yes, to be part of it, yeah.
So I think, we're talking about this definition of what it means to be a leader. Would you say a leader is someone who models behavior?
I don't know. Are they pretending or are they authentic?
Okay, so I think
I can tell authentic people.
Right.
And I can tell people who are playing a role. And if you're playing a role, okay, that's fine to a point.
You're not going to be respected.
Well, you can get by on some level with some people, but like I said, to me, the leadership thing is silent. It's not about what you're saying. It's really more about how you act.
Your behavior.
Just how you walk in a room, how you stand in that room. What you look like, your body language is like when you're talking to other people or people are talking to you. That, to me, that observed behavior, if it's call it behavior, is what inspires me by some people, and what doesn't inspire me when I see other people. There's people who like to talk, and there's people who like to listen, and I'd like to think that I listen almost as much as I talk, but I talk a lot, so I try to listen a lot. But there is a limit. I have limitations as a manager that I freely admit. And when I tell people, I have no idea what you're talking about, or I have no idea what to do in this situation, I've had people tell me, you really shouldn't say that, Don, because you're showing weakness, you're showing vulnerability. I'm like, no, I'm just being honest.
Right.
I mean, I'm not.
And that's why
that's the performative part of it. If I pretend all the time that everything's freaking perfect and I got the answer to everything, people are going to call me out like immediately and say, he's full of crap.
Right. We can't know everything. We can't all be good at everything.
Right.
And so 100%. And you said that earlier. You said, I tell them I don't know. There's a lot of leaders that are afraid to say that, that are afraid to admit that, and they've been told not to. And it is the wrong decision. When you don't know something, admit you don't know it. And the older I've gotten, the more comfortable I've got saying, I don't know. I coach parents. I've done that for 13 years.
Yeah.
I do not know everything, and I still screw it up daily. I'm just quicker to recognize it and quicker to repair. In the workplace, I don't know everything. I would still screw things up, but I'm going to own it. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to repair.
Yeah.
So I think leaders, there's good leaders and there's bad leaders. So, and you're right, leadership is somewhat of a presence. I can tell my kids all day long, don't be on your phone when you're driving, right? But if I'm the parent on my phone in the car, guilty, I've done it. I'm not modeling.
Yeah.
I'm not being a leader in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's interesting. I like being challenged because it makes me think about things from different perspectives. So I appreciate that and I embrace it. But I see leadership it's more about what you do, less about what you say. It's more about living in alignment with the belief, whatever that belief is. If it's the mission statement of your company, if it's the values in your home. Like in my home, we have values in the kitchen because we all screw it up and we got to go back to the drawing board. Okay, well, we value kindness. Was that kind? It gives us the foundation to go back to hold people accountable, even myself.
Yeah.
So if my kids, rolling their eyes or being disrespectful, I just look at the dry erase board in the kitchen.
Yeah.
If I'm yelling or being reactive, I look at the board. I'm like,
funny,
shit, I did it again.
we had all of our 3 daughters and their children with us over the 4th of July weekend, and my oldest granddaughter is 8. And she's this perfect mix of little woman, little preteen, and little girl.
Right.
I'm watching her mom's talking to her, and she's rolling her eyes. She's giving the smirks, and I go, okay, so there's the 13-year-old, the soon-to-be. And then she gets in the pool, and she's got a little rubber shark, and she's playing in the water with the shark. And I go, okay, there's the 5-year-old in her still. And so she's this dichotomy between trying to be a little girl and being, well, a child.
Right.
And I thought, when is she going to, move into that other direction in a more profound way? And I thought, how cool that I'm getting to witness this, because when raising my own 3 daughters, I'm not sure I noticed that as much because you're in the moment like you are with your kids. You're dealing with stuff, right? I mean, you're managing the stuff, right? What stuff are they doing? Are they getting in trouble? Are they not doing well in school? You're managing the things.
We're putting out fires.
Yeah. And and it just was such a luxury, to be honest with you, to just sit across the table with no agenda, no purpose in mind, and just watch her with her mom. And I just thought it was so cool.
So that is why I'm doing what I do now. I'm in this weird space where I have this education background. I've done all this research on parenting. Doesn't mean I'm the perfect parent. It just means I know how to fail better. We'll call it fail better, fail forward, whatever. And then I've seen how this can have an impact in the workplace with people. Just in my own conversations with people, with leaders communicating with people that work for them, whatever it may be. But watching little kids and their development, you learn so much.
Yeah.
We don't give kids enough credit, one, for how smart they are and how much information they come to the table with. So in the workplace, we have different people that are good at different things, right? Because we can't do all the things. Like I do not like doing my books, my accounting. I pay somebody to do that because that is not my jam. I could do this all day. I can go talk to people. I can go support people. I can help. I like to do things. Put me behind a computer doing math. No, thank you. I didn't like math in school. I wasn't great at it either. And I was kind of shamed for that. And I used to think I'm not book smart. No, that's not my thing. I don't have to be great at everything. So why we put kids in schools where we teach them, we put so much pressure on them to get good grades in every subject. We're not going to be great at everything. We need to teach them to be resourceful. And when I worked at Bambini, I was sitting one day on the floor with a group of kids, and you just ask them questions. Like, I would hand them, instead of me telling them this is bumpy, this is smooth, I would hand them all these different open-ended materials, right? What do you notice? What do you see? And there was a little boy there that said, had wire, and he goes, it remembers its moves. How creative, how interesting. Kids just, they don't have all the limiting beliefs, and they haven't been contaminated by everything out in the world, that they just have such creative, open, amazing minds. And I love taking the bits that I learned in that environment and applying it into the workplace even. Like, have fun. Like, I did a keynote one time and I played the Macarena. I'm like, you guys are going to get outside your comfort zone and dance. Have fun. People like to have fun. People want connection.
Yeah, but Kori,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna challenge that assertion, because while we can marvel at the innocence of our children, people come to the workplace not innocent. They are biased. They're inculcated. They have opinions about things, and you wonder where they got them sometimes.
Right.
They're misinformed largely about everything. Like you, I didn't like math, so I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, how much math can you actually do? Because some of this requires addition and subtraction and maybe a multiplication from time to time. Are you going to be able to handle that?
Yeah.
Or are you going to stress out and tell me, well, it's really not my thing? There's probably not a job here that doesn't require a little bit. If you became a nurse and you have to know what the dose is in terms of milligrams per kilogram, I need you to be able to calculate that. And you can get a calculator out and say, okay, I need 10 milligrams. This person weighs 62 kilograms. And maybe you could even do the division from what that was in pounds to kilograms so that but if you can't do those things because you don't like doing those things, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. There's nobody who's going to do that for you. But people come in with this mentality that, well, your job is to make it easier for me to do my job.
Yeah, no, because they're not resourceful.
My job is to pay you for the job that you claimed you could do. If I'm paying you to do the job, then I expect you to just do it. Don't tell me why you can't or why you won't or why it isn't easy. And by the way, I don't want to hear every day how hard your job is.
Right.
You took it. If it's too hard for you, then you shouldn't have taken it. I hear that a lot. In fact, I was at the drugstore down in Phoenix. We just bought a house down there. And I had to move some of my prescriptions down there. And not realizing I had forgotten a couple, and I'm a heart failure patient, so I need to be on these drugs every day. I can't go days without it. And I was working with the lady behind the counter at Walgreens, and she was very kind. She said, we'll do the best we can to get these to you today, Mr. Peterson. And as I was walking away, the pharmacist says to me over the counter in a loud voice, "It won't be today. We're backed up." I said, well, this nice lady just said you'll do the best that you can. Yeah, the best we can probably do is going to be tomorrow. It might even be 2 days from now. And I said, well, thank you for informing me how hard your job is.
Right.
I really don't know that I can do much about that. Deliver it when you can deliver it. And I'll accept it whenever you get it done. But I don't really need to know how hard your job is. And, but there are people who think they need to share that with not only the customer, which I thought was
unprofessional,
wholly inappropriate, but with their boss and with their coworkers all day long.
Yeah.
Well, these people come in here and they expect to get everything the same day, and I'm so busy. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. I never even get a lunch break, and I don't have time to go take a pee. And it's like, oh my God, why are you doing this job if you're so unhappy? If you're so stressed out, if it's so hard, why go get a job driving for Uber or something? Go do DoorDash. Well, I'm a certified, pharmacist. Yeah, and you're an asshole. Well, if your job is turning you into an asshole, stop doing it.
Well, and it might not even be his job. There are all kinds of things that drive our behavior, right? Doesn't make it okay, doesn't make him good at his job. It's just unfortunate. We see it every day now more than ever. You go into a restaurant, if there's a young server that just hasn't had a lot of experience out there, you ask them to change one thing and they're all flustered. They don't know how to. So when I say I was really freaking good at math when I waited tables. You figure it out. You need to be, there's a certain level of, it's not an excuse. So one of my biggest triggers in life is someone playing the victim. Yeah. That is a trigger for me.
But that seems to be epidemic level.
Yes. So my biggest passion is I see a deficit in education as a whole needs to change. We need to get kids critically, especially with technology now. Kids need opportunities for critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration. What I'm saying is they need to have some ability in all of the areas, but I don't think it's realistic. I mean, for them to excel in every area.
Yeah.
Let's focus on where you're good. Like, what do you like? What are you good at? And be resourceful. Go figure it out how to get the other parts done. Go find the person that can support you. So the school my kids went to, there was a lot of collaborative work. There was a lot of public speaking. It was a very much an entrepreneur-based education. They built a website in 4th grade. They do a 5th grade exhibition project where they can pick any topic they want, but it has to be something worldly and it has to have impact. And they do research and they raise money, and these are 10-year-olds. It's crazy, but kids are so capable. I just learned a lot about people and development. So what I've done, so there's 6 threads I focus on. So I talked about values and alignment. So in my home, it's my values. In a company, it's probably your mission statement. But typically there's something that drives what you're doing.
Yeah.
Then your mindset. Your mindset matters. We can have an open mindset or a closed mindset. We're going to get a lot further with an open mindset, right? Because you're going to come across all different people that are going to have different beliefs than you, coming from backgrounds with all kinds of experience, right? They bring all their garbage with them when they come.
Yeah.
And then, so it's understanding, can they adapt? Can they fall in line, or can they not? But sometimes when we're the better communicator, we're asking the right questions from a curiosity standpoint, we're going to get there a lot quicker.
Let me give you an example of something that happened in my last company that still bothers me today.
Okay.
Because it had some ramifications later on. And I wished it hadn't, but it did. And I thought, Don, maybe you could have handled things differently. On the other hand, maybe not. So I had this young guy come work for me, the son of an important person in our company. Who had been working for another important person in our company who was employed elsewhere. And he had told me that this young man wasn't getting the job done, but maybe he'd do better in a more office-like setting because he had been in some kind of a sales role. Sales wasn't his thing. Okay. So when Dad came to me and asked me if I would consider bringing him on, I believe I told Dad that I would be willing to give him a chance, but that as an early stage company, I don't have time to hold his hand. He's going to have to learn this stuff. And now this kid, he went to law school, got a law degree, but he never clerked. He didn't even try to pass the bar, as far as I know. Maybe he had, I don't know. All I know is he had not passed the bar. And so I interviewed him. I said, look, if you will take it upon yourself to learn the healthcare laws that apply to us, and you diligently do that work and help me with contracts and other legal things that we have to sign and deal with, that would be of great service to me. And I said, but how much do you expect me to pay you for this? He goes, I need to make $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. I said, that's a lot for what you're going to contribute early on. I said, okay, though. That's fine, but that's more than I should be paying you. But hopefully then you'll stretch and get more done as a result. So, okay. So he brought him on, and at that time, everybody who was at a certain level had a car allowance, because at that time we were all driving to our new clinics and things like that, and nobody was exempt from that. If you had to go, you had to go, right? And so he was getting a $500 a month car allowance as well, in addition to $100,000 a year. And wasn't much later, one of our investors suggested that the car allowance policy was a little bit too liberal, that we had plenty of people who were not driving any bit at all, and yet we were giving them a car allowance. So maybe we ought to consider just reimbursing people for the mileage they actually put in. Make them keep track of the mileage, they turn it in, we pay them back. Okay, great. So we changed the policy. It wasn't a week went by, and this young man comes in my office, and he says, Don, he said, why are we changing the car policy? And I explained to him exactly the reason I just said to you,
Right.
right? It just doesn't make sense to what we're doing. And I said, we have other people's money in our company. We have to be good stewards of that money.
Right.
And he said, well, I just bought my wife a car based on that. And I said, well, I wouldn't have done that. That's extra income that's meant to go to you for the wear and tear and gas that goes in your car if we were asking you to travel using your car. Yeah, but I never did, and so I figured I could spend the money somewhere else. And I said, well,
Oh my.
that was an assumption you made that probably you shouldn't have. So not much I can do for you, buddy, but
Go figure it out.
go figure it out, right?
Right.
So another week went by. And every time this young man came in my office, he never sat down. He just stood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time he comes in my office and he actually pulls the chair out from the front of my desk and sits down. I thought, okay, here we go. This is going to be interesting. And he proceeds to tell me he needs a raise. I said, okay, you understand you've been here less than a year. I paid you
More than you wanted
more than
to.
you were deserving of right from the beginning. You're still making that amount of money, and not a year has gone by. I don't think you're ready for that yet. He goes, well, you don't understand, Don. I've got 1 million people asking me to do 1 million different things, and I just can't keep up with it. And I said, well, let's walk back from that comment. We don't have millions of people, and we don't have millions of things to do. So exactly who's asking you to do what that you don't feel you should be doing, that now you want to raise so you can go do them? Is that what you're saying? Or are you doing them and now you just want to get compensated for doing all these millions of things? And he said, well, I'm doing both. Sometimes I'm telling people I don't have time for it, and then other times I'm just taking it on. He said, but I'm trying to be, a good contributor. And I said, well, I hear that, and I appreciate that. I said, but Connor, I'm already paying you more than I was going to pay you to begin with, and now you're asking me for more money, and it sounds to me like you just want to replace the car allowance that you no longer have.
Right.
Is that it? He said, well, that was a bad thing. Yeah, that really hurt me. And I said, well, I don't know how much more I can help you. He said, well, you're not helping me with anything. I'm having to do all of this on my own. I have to decide who to tell a yes to and who to say no to and all this stuff. And I said, okay, and that's exactly what I told you when you came aboard. I didn't have time for this. I don't have time for this. You have a specific skill that you want to develop, and I'm giving you the opportunity to develop it. And I'm
Right.
paying you to do it. I said, I don't know how much more I can do for you. He said, well, I don't feel like I'm being fairly treated. And I said, then you're probably in the wrong place.
Right.
Right? So what did he do? He went back to his desk and wrote me a resignation letter. And then he proceeded to tell everybody, including his father, that I had fired him. And I didn't.
Right.
I could have.
Right.
I probably should have.
Right. Well,
And-
he did it for you.
Well, he basically terminated himself because he was
Which doesn't make any
unsatisfied.
sense because it sounded like he needed the money.
Well, there again, right?
Yeah.
So he's acting in direct opposition to the claim he was making to me about what I had to solve.
Right.
And as a leader, I thought, if I do this for you, then I have to do this for everybody.
No,
I
that
have to be
wouldn't-
fair. If anybody who walks in my office tells me they're not making enough money and they got bills to pay and they bought a car and they don't know how to...
Not my problem.
I'm supposed to do what? What am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? Say, oh, well, how much more money do you need? Can I get reach in my pocket?
Well, and
and
that's not good.
I mean, really?
Yeah.
And but the fact that his father seized on this, I have not spoken to him. This guy was a co-founder of my company. I haven't spoken to him since that day. And, he made millions of dollars off of what we did, millions. And so there was no acknowledgement of that, no thank you, no nothing, simply because his son told Dad that I fired him, when in fact I did not. And as a leader, I still think about this
Right.
because I wonder, what could I have done differently? What should I have done differently?
I think it says more about his father, less about. I mean, I think there's nothing I would have done different. There's not. If I was in the same situation, I wouldn't. It's not fun to be in that situation. But
Well, and our other friend who he had been working for before he came working for us, he said, see, I told you.
Yeah.
I said, well, why? You should have warned me a little
So-
bit more,
I worked for a big company, and I worked for the chairman of the board of the company's son, and it was a very. I have a file I learned a lot in that experience. It taught me so much. Yeah, I wasn't whining and complaining. I was documenting because I thought if I lose my job, I want to be able to prove that I was doing my part. But everybody knew. I mean, everybody knew. I just couldn't sit. You know, I had to. It was very political. I had to learn to play the game. And service the customer and do my job without getting caught up in all the BS of the politics of that relationship. He eventually got let go by the company once his dad had passed away. But I learned so much. You know, the hard moments are when we learn, but there's nothing I would have done any different. That was not anything you did. And that says more about his father. And that's that helicopter lawnmower parent problem we have. And that's the product that we're getting from that.
And the resentment now from him, as if whatever his son had to say was absolutely true, because his son could never do anything wrong. And it must have been Don being a jerk that all this happened.
To not even come to you and have a conversation.
Oh, I don't care. I mean, look, I've done a lot of things in my life that never get explained.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things have happened to me that never get explained. And as much as I'd like to close every open loop, I can't.
But you don't have control over that.
Right. And in this particular case, look, if he was that important to me, I would be reaching out.
Yeah.
And I have soft reached out through this mutual friend that we have that got his son working for us in the first place and said, look, if Rob ever wants to bury the hatchet, I'm up for that. I don't see any particular reason for us to be walking on this planet together and, have this animus towards each other, because I frankly don't know why. I mean, I'm being accused of something that never happened, and if Dad can't see that, and then all he gives a shit about is what his son had to say, then I can't fix that.
Nope.
But I can at least be open to, hey, if you ever want to have this conversation, we can have it. And if you don't, then fine, I can live without you. I didn't need you before I met you, and I don't need you since I met you.
And part of me is like, do you want? I mean, there is a point where it's like, okay, maybe I don't need you in my life if this is how we're gonna right.
I've let a lot of people go in my life that I don't need because they. And I just said this to my son-in-law the other day because he asked me how I was, because of my heart condition a couple of years ago and all this stuff. He said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, we were talking about alcohol, because when I went to Europe, I had a few glasses of wine. I hadn't drank in 3 years since the heart thing.
Right.
And I said, but a couple glasses of red wine, I felt like, not going to kill me. And because otherwise I feel great. And he said, he's 38 now. He said, I'm thinking about, alcohol now it just wears me out, and I hung over and I drag my butt for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And I said, and exactly that's the way I look at it, Nick. I said, anything that takes energy away from me, that sucks up energy, is not worth doing anymore, because I value every ounce of energy I have. I value every inch of runway that the good Lord gives me, and I want to make the best of every inch of that. And if I'm dragging my ass around because I was out drinking the night before, I'm going to regret that. It's the same with, I'll smoke a cigar now and then, but I limit myself to no more than 3 in a week,
Right.
And my daughter, who's a doctor, she's like, Dad, so last thing you should be doing. It's like, 3 days a week. I mean, come on, and I'm doing my best not to inhale.
You got to live a little.
Yeah, come on, there's a certain quality of life that, I got to have. But this idea that people can come into the workplace like this young man and demand of leaders that we do things for them that are what their parents did for them is, to me, a scary proposition, but it's almost epidemic. We have too much of this going on, and I do believe, and I'm going to say something provocative to you, and you're going to hate me for saying this.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, you are. And I'm wondering if even I should say it.
You can say it. I am not sensitive, I promise.
Okay.
I'm not.
That too many women in the workplace
I'm probably going to agree with you.
Have raised the level of empathetic tolerance to the point of distraction.
I would agree.
Okay.
You're not, I told you.
Okay, because dudes, if you go back and you watch Mad Men and how we treated people, you'd say, oh, that was sexist, that was this, that was that.
No, we're meant to be.
But I want to be able to call somebody and say, you son of a bitch, why did you do that for? Why did we, why can't we have a knockdown, drag-out argument, and then when we're done, go have a beer?
Right.
Because we're still all
We
on
need
the
to
same
learn-
mission.
Yes, we need
right?
to.
I don't hate you.
Yep.
I don't dislike you.
Yep.
But whatever you just
I
did
don't have to
pissed
agree
me
with you.
off.
Yep.
And I want you to know you pissed me off.
Yeah.
You betrayed our trust. You did something that I would never expected you to do. And I need to tell you that.
Yep.
But afterwards, I'm still willing to love you and
Right.
be a friend, and we can go have a beer and put it behind us. Can we? Can we
Yep.
put? Could we? And that's what I'd love to do with this young man and say, look, dude, I don't know what the hell you were thinking I was supposed to be doing for you,
Right.
but you're out of your mind
And
if
you're
you
not
thought I
doing
was
him a
going to.
service by doing it.
Yeah,
No.
and so, but I knew those words would be lost on him. That there was no
No.
bro code with him, right? But I've watched
Yep.
HR being
Yep.
basically given to women to run because women have that empathy that us men don't have. I've had my own daughters tell me who've sat on Zoom calls with me and business things, Dad, you really shouldn't have said that, or Dad, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I say those things because I'm going to say those things. You can tell me that there would probably a better way that you as a woman would have said it,
Right.
but I'm not a woman, and I'm not going to say it that way.
I'm kind of weird in that. So I get it. So the bottom line is men and women are different. Women are.
We are?
We're
Well,
caregivers.
Jesus.
Right?
I mean,
But we live in this world where if you talk about, well, first of all, if you're not saying anything that doesn't piss somebody off, you're probably not saying
anything at all, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So you're going to piss somebody off. Do I believe women can go start a business, be an absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm all for it. But I do understand what you're saying because we are empathetic. We make decisions
Yes.
more based on emotion.
You'll trade being good at math for being good with people.
Right.
Right?
Right. It's not different. So I 100%. It's funny. I love being challenged, but I very much agree with a lot of the beliefs and philosophies that when I listen to your previous episodes that you share. I do not believe in coddling. I believe there is a huge gap on what we're doing with kids and what's entering the workplace.
Yeah.
And I got in this weird space where I coach parents. I'm trying to be the best parent I can be. Again, not perfect. I'm just failing forward. And then I'm like, gosh, I think this can be helpful in the workplace when dealing with people, and not to overprotect, not to coddle, hold them accountable, coach them. And you can't do that. You're the business owner. You're too busy. So my passion is doing that for people.
Yeah.
Is filling that gap. Like if there's a company and let's say they own hundreds of stores throughout the country, and the store owners have a bad taste in their mouth because for years it's been a very top-down approach to management. You just do this because we said to do it, and it's going to work in your business. It doesn't matter where you're located, where the geography, none of it. Just do it because that's what we need to do. So not a great mindset when you're trying to sell things to owners, and then they've done it and it hasn't worked because the markets are different. They've been ill-advised in some ways, so there's a very bad taste in their mouth. So they're very standoffish now. And now we're trying to create a situation where we're going to revamp that top-down approach, and we want to walk alongside you. But to do that, we've got to build back that relationship. So my passion is helping people with that.
Yeah.
That is not for every business owner.
No.
I would say growth-minded owners, people that are aware, people that are open to change. If somebody is just not open to change, that is not the person or company that I'm going to be successful helping. And I'm not going to go in and tell them their baby's ugly. I'm going to do an assessment with them and say, okay, where do you think things are? And then I like to do an assessment with the employees or whoever they're managing or their customer to see where the gap is, where they think they are, where they think they're doing well, and what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And making that
So,
distinction.
Are you overtly trying then to solve the riddle of how management deals with the store managers and owners? Is that basically where you intersect with these corporations?
Like
that?
relationships. So my passion's relationships, building the relationships, trust, connection, and bridging the communication gap. This is the behavior you're seeing, but this is why.
Yeah.
It's not what you think it is.
Okay.
And in order to improve that, try doing this. So it's like, I'm not corporate, I'm not working for corporate, and I'm not an owner. But if it's an industry I understand, especially because that's one I'm currently working with, then I can bridge that gap because I have experience on both ends.
Okay.
And then now I can connect the two.
So let me ask you, from my entrepreneur
Yeah.
lens, if you were advising me, who's starting a company, and I've been a technology guy all my life, I've been a sales guy, I don't have a lot of leadership experience. What would you tell me I need to be better at or be good at in order to be a good leader, even though I've been around the industry a long time and I've been involved in, it's like in my particular case, I'm very unique in the healthcare industry because I came from the technology space. So when I look at some of the ways that medicine is delivered today, I shake my head and go, "What? You do what? You're faxing stuff? You're what? You're typing things into a computer that you
Right.
printed out of another computer because the only way to get it back into that computer is to type it back in. You're doing what?" And I just I call them my shake your head moments. It's like, you do what? What? And I have a unique perspective on that because I didn't grow up in healthcare. You talk to a lot of people who spent their entire career in healthcare, and they just think that, well, that's just the way
How
it is.
it is.
Just the way it is. And no, well, it's the way it is in healthcare. It's not the way it is in every freaking industry in the world except this one.
Right.
And the only reason it's still this way is because you tolerate it. And in technology, we don't tolerate old behaviors. In fact, if you're not an agent of change, if you're not the agent of change, then you're the anchor, you're the drag, you're what's slowing us down. And so the last thing you want to be in Silicon Valley is the guy slowing everybody else down because you don't want to change. Well, but we've always done it this way, and this way is better. And I'm shut up. Come along. You'll see. Give it a moment. You'll be okay. You're not going to die.
People don't like change. Change is uncomfortable,
Well,
right?
And I can tell you there's certain industries that are not only averse to change, they outwardly resist it. They will not do it. We will not do it. Doctors, I remember there was a thing on the Kaiser Permanente website one time I saw. I don't know why I was there, but I saw it. Said that they'd spent over 1.5 million hours training their staff on the new EMR system. And I thought, is that a brag or are you admitting defeat? Because if it took you that many hours to train somebody on a piece of technology that you paid millions of dollars for, then either the technology wasn't very good and you had to train everybody on how to use all the stupid features that nobody could find, or you're admitting the fact that you just can't train your people well enough to get them to actually use the product the way it's supposed to be used because, well, they're not listening or they're not trying or both. And it turned out, I asked the question of somebody later, I said, I wonder how many doctor hours were really spent doing that. I bet none. I bet the staff trained and they were supposed to go inform the doctors how to do things. And half the time they didn't know how either. And the doctors never learned how. And yet that's a brag. I think it was a brag.
And it's inefficient.
Yeah, it's like, well, how inefficient is that, right? And I'm thinking about the C-suite at Kaiser Permanente, and they reading the website going, holy crap, how much money did we invest in that? And are we still doing it? And if we're still doing it and we're doing it the same way, maybe we got to find a better way. No, but this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way it's going to happen. And the brag is that we spent that many hours doing it.
Well, and it's hard to let go of that, right? Because somebody was responsible for making that decision.
Yeah.
So, and that can't have not been for nothing. Because
I'm
what
sure
does
it
that
wasn't for
mean?
nothing, but the question is, how was the bang for the buck, folks?
Oh, no, I'm saying I agree with
say
you,
that
but I
was-
think it's just hard. People do not like change. And so if we want to encourage change, approaching it from the perspective of curiosity and assuming the best helps us get a little further.
Well, I agree. And having grown up as a sales guy, I did learn asking questions was much more effective than making statements. And I still do the same thing. I try to ask questions, even if it leads me to something I had to say. It's an ego thing. At the same time, it's a manipulation thing, but in some respects it is. If I get you talking, then I don't have to talk as much. I'd rather ask you questions and let you talk. But then there's points where I sometimes have to fill in a gap that you might have left, or, a point that or an assertion that you made that needs to be challenged. Because I think at least in this format, what people want to hear isn't you giving them a commercial about how awesome you are and the thing that you do, and which is fair and fine. I don't have any problem with that in the main. But what I think people want to hear from this podcast is she full of baloney, or is she for real? And is this somebody that can actually help me or help my company, or not? Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to make you into that person or not. But if you can go toe to toe with me, then maybe that helps. But I have very strong opinions about most everything, and it's sometimes hard to quash that.
I love it.
Well, it's just.
I wouldn't have loved it maybe 10 years ago. Like, it's been a journey, right? It's getting comfortable being who you are.
Well,
knowing that I don't know everything, and I learn every time I engage in healthy debate or conversation, or I'm challenged, or I'm questioned. I actually like that now. I wasn't probably secure enough on my journey, especially 20 years ago. That would have been hard.
Well, that's what I worried about coming into this.
Right?
Well, I didn't know how sensitive you were going to be.
Oh, no, I'm not. Do I seem sensitive?
You didn't seem to be, and I thought, okay, I think Kori can handle this. Because, again, I just won't sit here and let you give an infomercial, because I don't think it's fair to the audience. I think what the audience wants to know is this for real or not for real?
Yeah, and it's not for everybody. I'm not for everybody.
Well, I'll be honest with you, though. I mean, a couple of years ago, this was epidemic. I'd wake up every freaking morning to, postings on LinkedIn about the 12 things, great leaders do before 5:30 in the morning, and the 10 things that you have to do every day if you want to be considered a great leader. And I actually wrote an article, it's on LinkedIn, I think still, that none of these lists are worth a crap, in my opinion, because it really comes down to the strength of your commitment. If you're not...
I think character.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's character.
Yeah.
It's. I guess I tried to say that from the outset.
Yeah.
It's not about what you
I get it.
do so much as to what people believe you can do, or what you inspire them to do.
So I'm the crazy emotional brain, right? And I'm driven by, I would say it's like a God thing. I mean, I'm pretty spiritual as far as like, I don't even understand sometimes. The path is not straight. I've learned to pivot. I try to pay attention to the signs and the things. The goal is to have impact. The goal is to help people. That is when I feel most fulfilled. It's the journey, not the destination. And if I'm not doing that here, then how do I pivot and redirect? But yes, I think we are somewhat saying the same thing. I just say it from more of that emotional perspective because I'm female, and you're much more analytical.
I'm logical,
and
I'm hyper logical,
and which is good for me because I'm probably not quite as logical as I need to be, but my drive for what I do from a leadership perspective is very much on, I say lead yourself first, but you got to look inward. You can't lead anybody unless you heal things that are broken inside of you, unless you live what you're saying. Like, I'm living in real time, better not perfect. That's one of the things I say.
Yeah.
Because if I wait to do anything in life till I feel perfect at it, I'm never going to do the thing.
Well, yeah, but it's like you just said, though, it's not the journey. I mean, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like I said about pickleball. Yeah, I really enjoy playing, but I like winning more. And so it is a little bit about the destination, too.
Yeah.
If we were all in a job or a position in the world that paid us reasonably well to stay on a merry-go-round and go around in circles for the rest of our lives, I think that most of us would... Well, shoot the horse and then shoot ourselves, or shoot ourselves first, then shoot the horse.
So I see it as a journey that keeps going, less like a merry-go-round, more like an arrow. Like, I have an arrow. I have one tattooed on my arm, but it's life. The arrow is not straight. It pulls back sometimes, like when things are hard. But you got to keep going. You can't quit.
Yeah. Well, this is where I think culturally our society has shifted the victimhood mentality is epidemic.
Yep.
It's everybody else's fault that I'm not ahead. It's everybody else's fault that I'm in debt. It's everybody else's fault that I can't afford to buy a house. I just read, there was a Wall Street Journal article this morning about this young couple in their 30s, so not that young, but young enough,
Right.
with two little kids living at home with one of their parents.
Right.
And they've been able to save on one income. So this guy makes $122,000 a year. So he's got a $112,000 a year job, and he's got a $10K a year side hustle. And so on $122,000, the two of them have been able to save almost $700,000. You know, they're contributing $500 a month to the 529 plan for their daughter and all this stuff. And, you know, and a lot of people think that living at home with your parents when you're in your 30s is a bad thing. Well, if you need to, save money to go buy a house or whatever it is, or live on one income, you know, and this is the big, it struck me, the article struck me for two things. One is how much they could save on a salary of $122,000. It's remarkable. But it can be done, and I did the math with them. So they were talking about how much they spend every month, and I'm like, holy crap, that's a frugal couple.
Right.
That, you know, they're saving almost 37% of their income, which is, I mean, take-home income, which is remarkable. But it can be done.
Not the norm.
And the other thing that was, in my opinion, remarkable, culturally and socially, is that mom was staying at home with the kids and raising them, and that they could do that on one salary.
Right.
Because you hear people like Scott Galloway and others telling young people that that's not possible anymore, when it is. You know, my son-in-law encouraged me to write a book, and he said, you know, Don, your life is basically mission impossible. And I said, no, it's not. It was mission possible because I did it. It wasn't impossible. It didn't stop me. It wasn't easy, but I accomplished everything I could imagine accomplishing in my life. And I'm grateful for every ounce of it. But it was done. I mean, the way that my wife and I grew up, you would never have imagined that we'd be living like we do now. But all that should say to people is it can be done. It is possible. And I read this article, it gave me hope that young people could see that it's still possible. It's not out of reach. I mean, they're looking at buying a $450,000 house, this couple. That's the median home price. That's not the starter home price.
Right.
And yet all you ever see is that no kid can afford a median home price in Leawood because they're $480,000. Why the hell, first of all, you want to live in Leawood? And two, why would you ever buy a median priced home as your first home?
Right.
Go buy the one-car garage with the 2 bedrooms and the 1 bathroom. That's where everybody starts.
But kids are entitled now. Like when they're going to Starbucks and shopping at Lulu and all the things they can't afford.
Exactly.
Like we didn't have that. I had to bust my ass when I was younger to get I didn't have a car when I was 16. Both my kids have cars.
Well, I had a car. It cost me $150.
Right.
And there was 2 doors on one side that didn't even open because it came from a different model car.
It's just we had to work really hard. And I'm not saying my parents did a lot for me, but my dad, my first car I got my sophomore year of college, and I think I made enough. He split the down payment, but then I leased it. Then I had to pay the monthly payment, and it was a Honda Civic, no power steering, and a stick shift that I had to learn to drive on the way to college. So it was not. It's just it's our fault as parents, and we're not doing. Our nature's to want to save and protect our kids, but we're doing them a disservice. And then in school, we're doing them a disservice. And the schools it's just the way it's been. Talk about things evolving and changing between, like in the healthcare world, look at education. And we have kids sitting behind, with everything we know about human development, we have kids sitting behind desks in classrooms, don't talk, don't share, don't disagree with me. The tree is brown and green. Well, I'm sorry. I was an art education major. If you look at that tree and isolate the colors, you can find purple in it. Why are we putting all these limiting beliefs? Why are we feeding that into our kids?
Well, because education has become less about critical thinking and more about what you can remember.
I don't think it's become that. I think it's been that.
Yeah, maybe.
It became that in the Industrial Revolution, and it has not evolved. And it can. and it would not be hard to change environments, to take the current curriculum and change the way we implement it to make it more interesting and more fun.
So how do we foment that change? How do we foment that mentality? Because what's happening, I see as an employer, is young people coming into the workforce, one, lacking skills.
And coping.
Well, forget the coping thing. That's
But
a
just
whole
skills.
emotional thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that problem. But
Problem solving.
I'm just suggesting that they don't come with basic skills to do things.
And it's not even their fault. They haven't been given the
Well,
opportunity.
see, I don't let them off the hook that easily.
Well, I'm not
You
saying
chose to go to college,
Yeah.
and you knew that your basket weaving degree was not going to get you a job
Yeah.
after school. You knew your history or your whatever arts thing that you did, Western civilization. I read every book written by the Renaissance authors, whatever the crap it was. If it wasn't leading to a job, credentials for a job when you get out of school, then don't expect one. Then you will be waitressing. You'll be driving for Uber. You'll be doing side work. You'll be doing whatever it is. And I tell a lot of young boys today, go into the trades.
That's
You're
what I
way
told my
better
son.
off.
I told my son, I was like, you're not going to go into debt for college. You're just not going to. So we're going to have to figure it out, and we want to be smart. If you want to go to college, there's some social experience there, right? And there's education, but 100% the trades is where
Well,
it's at.
look at the School of the Ozarks. I don't know if you're familiar with it. As a
it's
Christian,
amazing.
you would know this school. I mean, these
I've been to
kids
the
work.
restaurant there.
They work the
Yeah.
farm. Yeah, the Kiefer
Yeah.
Center is awesome, right?
It's an
Those
amazing-
kids do a great job. Why would you not send your
It's
kid
real-
there if you could
yes,
get them there, right?
yes.
I mean, they have students from all over the world
Yes,
there.
it's amazing. So the owner of the school, Bambini, Great TV, she took us there when
Okay.
we were teachers because she wanted us to see that because that is very much like the environment. It's a continuation of that environment.
Yeah.
So what is the answer? That is a very good question. So I have a vision. So everyone told me when I went down this path of, okay, I think this can help business professionals too. I've done this parenting education thing, but I had dads that came to my parenting classes that owned, fast food chains. And they're like, my managers need this. Managing my employees is like managing children.
Yeah.
And I think we've also sold ourselves this lie that our personal and professional lives are separate. We are one human being, whether we're walking into work or walking into home. Now, do we set emotions aside and we're better at that at work? But same skills that are required to run a home, if you're a stay-at-home mom, which I was, are the same skills that you need to manage people in a business. And the home part probably challenged me more than any job I've ever had.
Yeah.
It really did. I can't quit. I can't leave my kids.
I don't get a sabbatical.
There's no days off. If I'm sick and throwing up, I still have two little, I still have two little kids here that need me to care for them. I remember being so sick when my son was little that I actually was like, I'm laying on the table. But just driving us to the urgent care, you have to have grit and you've got to persevere. And so I don't know the answer, but I'm going to figure it out because I feel like we need to somehow connect the business world to education. And I don't know if trades need to come back to schools, and it's starting to in some schools. It depends upon the area. But somehow get business, I don't know if there's a business mentorship program or something to where kids can get real world experience and coaching before they even get out of school, so they are more driven or more focused and see, because one of the problems is they're on social media and they see, oh, he made $1 million, he did this, he created this AI company. My son's like, well, this guy's building websites for companies. I'm like, great. But they're not seeing all the behind the scenes, the hard work, the failures. They're just seeing the end result. They need to see they need to learn something from the ground up.
Well, it's the same thing with YouTube videos about how to tile your backsplash. They don't show you the hard part. They just show you, here's how you prep, and here's what it looks like when you get it done. Wow, that's beautiful. Me, it would take me 4 days to do that,
Right.
and I'd probably throw half the tiles in the trash because I couldn't cut them properly. They don't show you that part, right? And of course, these guys are professionals who are doing it, so they know what they're doing. You have no clue, right?
Right.
And I think that's like your son with the website thing. Really, I could go on Claude right now and design a website and literally post the HTML tonight and have a live website going
Right.
with no human intervention whatsoever
Which
except
is
my own.
crazy. Yeah.
And I'm not a programmer.
Right.
And so I think what young people in school, high school especially, starting in sophomore year, what they need is life coaching that says, look, you can go to college for a lot of things, all kinds of arts and sciences and social studies, all these things, right? And you can become a well-rounded person, a well-read person. You know, you can go to parties and you can have conversations about important topics with lots of different people from all walks of life. And that's a wonderful skill and capability to have. Or you can get a job.
Right.
Which one do you, what do you really need? Do you need to have a job when you get out of school? Or are you just going to be attending social events and parties where you need to be a good conversationalist? Is that, if that's
Or
your goal, that's great. Maybe that's cool. That's
Coming
fine.
out of college with a lot of debt and no job. Like,
Well, therein lies the other part of the problem, right? Because again, you're making a financial investment in yourself. How does that investment pay off? If it pays off because now I'm a social media influencer and my charm and my wit are what gets me by, great, that's great. Go do your thing. Although you go to parts of Europe and they're getting pretty sick of these stupid influencers who are doing stupid stuff all the time. But it's a living. It's unpredictable, but it's a living.
right.
Or you could get credentialed in a field where there's actually demand for workers in that field, and you know exactly how much they're going to pay when you show up with those credentials.
Right.
And you can go anywhere in the country and probably get a job. Or not.
So
You don't have to. Nobody says you have to, but that's what you ought to be taught in high school so that you're making informed choices instead of a 19-year-old having to decide or 18-year-old having to decide how they're going to spend the rest of their lives and the next $180,000 of their parents' money or somebody else's money.
Right. No, 100. And I laugh. So I have a passion about an event or something, and it's percolating. Like I get ideas, crazy ideas all the time. Like I also have a podcast, wrote the book. Like I just do things because it helps me get clarity on the ideas and how do we bridge that gap. And I want to call it Think, Lead, Bloom because we need critical thinking, we need leadership skills, and we need growth. And we need the ability to grow. We need the ability to not go get all our questions answered, but how do we coach them to be resourceful human beings? Go figure it out. They have more information in their pocket or in their hand than we ever have. When my kids come to me, parents need to stop giving them all the answers. When my kids come to me and ask me how to do something, or I'm like, use your phone, use the device,
That's why God invented Google. Go look it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and even beyond that now with AI, you can have a conversation. And again, I don't want my kids on technology all the time either, but it is there.
But I use AI for that stuff.
I do too.
I mean, why not?
It is there. So I have a friend that started a digital safety program. It's amazing. It's called Screen Guardians. And she and I have partnered because I do the parent side of what for her company, like parent coach, but she has law enforcement, she has neuroscience people that are sharing all of this information, right? So technology is not going anywhere. It is a tool. We need to reevaluate, though, how our kids are using it because now we have a lot more information on how it's been used, and we just need education, and parents need
I think
support.
that kids are at a huge disadvantage. It's like walking into a casino and thinking I know how to play blackjack or craps and that I'm going to walk away a winner every time.
Yeah, no.
The deck is so stacked against you that the likelihood of that happening is very, very low. So this notion that we can walk into a workplace or a school or something and we can figure it all out because we've been resourceful is just flat out wrong because the deck is so stacked against you.
What do you mean?
I think that, well, because nobody's educating you on the specifics. So if I understood exactly how the casino worked, I might be able to play with a little bit more leverage than I would if I just read a book about how to play craps. But if I didn't read the book on how to play craps, I probably shouldn't be playing craps at all. But everybody walks into school or something and thinking that they're going to be able to play craps like any other player without reading the book. They're watching the social media. They're sitting there with the doom scrolling on their news feed, but it's all the wrong stuff, right? It's not the right stuff. It's all the doom scrolling crap and every negative thing. It's like the Europeans. I don't know if you saw any of the YouTube videos of the Europeans coming over here going, God, you guys are not a lot nicer than the press told us you were.
Yes,
There's a lot less crime than they told us there was. Why? Because the press only reports the negative stuff because that's what the press does. People actually come over here and go, it's not so bad. In fact, it's pretty damn nice. And
I don't watch TV.
The same with us. I mean, I can go to England, and Muslims aren't chasing women down the street and raping them, on the street. And same in Germany or Belgium or Sweden or wherever else. Everybody claims this is happening all the time. I mean,
because they're trying to get us to watch their shows.
Well, they're selling clicks. It's all they're selling. Yeah, and that's my point, is that the kids aren't using social media. Social media is using them.
100%. They are the product.
They are the product.
They are the product that they're selling.
And they need to understand that when they're on social media, they're being exploited. Period.
100%.
100% exploited.
So there are programs, and now with all the Meta lawsuits, there's programs. So my friend's program, so she goes into schools and she works with the parents, the educators, and the kids, because the kids need to understand it more than anyone, because we can't micromanage and control.
Can I make a suggestion? Because what you're doing is so important. And every time I try to drag you into the corporate world, you roll back into the student world. And that's okay. That's okay. Because I can see that's where you're passionate.
It's my passion, but I see there's a connection there. And of course, what I talk about, I feel like it applies. You can tell me if I'm wrong, because I feel like your values and alignment.
No. My suggestion was going to be that it absolutely applies. But I would love to see you, instead of coaching a bunch of knuckleheads at some company, is coach the kids and their parents about what they could be doing with their lives post-high school. Start in sophomore year and supplement what their own counselors are not doing.
Right.
We're failing our children, and the only way we're going to fix our culture is to not fail them, is to fix them, and to give them the skills that they need to be critical thinkers, to be thoughtful leaders, to be, inquisitive beyond whatever is set in front of you. You have to question everything today. Anything that you read, even any chatbot. A chatbot will say something to me about something, and I'll say, yeah, I don't believe that assertion. Right. I think you need to give me more, demonstrate to me that you understand what you're talking about, because I don't think you do. And you know how many times it's come back and said, you're right to push back on that. I was missing the data, or I overstated that. And it does. And yet young people are going to take it at face value because they don't think they can challenge it, just like an adult. It's like
and just like the post, and adults do it too. And we're pitted against each other because of how social media is used. We're very polarized.
Yes.
100%. So I do that. I've taught parenting classes in person for 13 years now.
Okay.
And it's a curriculum. So Conscious Not Crazy is my company.
But you got to bring the kids, the sophomores and the juniors and the seniors.
Yes.
And they need to hear about that a machinist is going to make $180,000 a year once they become union, right? And that takes about 2 or 3 years. You still get paid for the 2 or 3 years until you get your union card. And then when you get your union card, you can go anywhere in this country and get a $180,000 a year job, and you never had to attend a college course or go into debt to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that same is true as electricians and plumbers and
the new millionaires.
Exactly. Exactly.
My son is going down that path for that reason.
And I applaud that. I think, at some point in time, we've got to get back to what works, what actually works, not the ideal of what. Not the ideal of what should work. College should give you a leg up. Okay, right now it's not. So what are you fighting it for?
Right.
Go do what the world wants. Right. Go do what the world needs. It's like all these smart people are going to get displaced by AI. No, they're going to find other smart things to do, because that's what smart people do.
Right.
The people who aren't that smart, they won't.
Right.
And they'll get, cast aside, and they'll get retrained for some other job. And the fact that they're average or below average in what they were doing, okay, well, I guess that's how you end up when you're below average. But if you're not, and you want to be better than that, the opportunities are going to be extraordinary. I've had the luxury of living through the invention of the integrated circuit and microprocessors, the creation of the personal computer, the invention of the internet. I was there in Cambridge in Massachusetts when it was all being formed. And now I've gotten to watch AI become something that we thought machine learning and predictive analytics would be, and it's way beyond that, beyond that.
And
right?
every day it just keeps going.
It gets better and better every day, and yet everybody talks about the negatives. Well, we talked about the negatives of the internet. We talked about the negatives of TV, that, we'd put radio out of business, and yet people are paying $40 a month for Sirius XM, so I guess radio is not a business. There are so many examples of inflection points in our world where we thought everything was going to change. Well, think about it. What did the internet change? What did it change? We know more. We have access to more information. We see more
information,
maybe, but it's like having too many radio waves running through your body.
I think we're overstimulated, right? Like we live in a state of, I need to, we're programmed to constantly check our phones, so it takes a lot of self-discipline to not do that. I had a time in my life that was stressful, and I noticed I was tuning out from the stress by binge watching Netflix.
Yeah.
Because when we were kids, we had to wait and watch the episode
once a week.
And we only had like 4 channels.
Yeah.
And so
4 remember.
Right?
Remember.
Or it was just, and our kids don't know, and it's not their, so when I say it's not the kids' fault.
It's not their fault. It's
What I'm talking about are things like that. They don't know any different. Just like the next generation isn't going to know any different.
Well, and I don't long for the days of old. I'm not suggesting that we go back to the way things were in the 60s.
There's some things like I like the 80s. Like there was, you go outside and you play till dark, and there was more autonomy for kids. There was more curiosity in nature, and that part, Jonathan Haidt talked about it in his book. That part is missing.
But see, this is, again, the provocative thing I said earlier about women in the workplace.
They're not,
They should be home with the kids.
Yeah, I'm great.
In more cases than they are.
Yeah.
Some kids need more supervision than others, but if you want your kids to come home from school and go outdoors and play, you have to be around for that.
Yeah, because otherwise they're coming home and they're on their devices.
Because they're sitting on their device or they're playing video games.
Which we would have been if we had
Absolutely.
that available.
There's no question. We would have done exactly the same behavior.
And I started, so there was a time in my life, because I talk about that in my book, is when I noticed I was using that as a coping skill.
Yeah.
And I was and I'm called a God moment. I was driving home to Kentucky to visit my dad, and a lot of times I'd listen to books or I'd just think on the 8-hour drive. And a thought came to me, what would my life look like if I gave up TV for a year?
Yeah.
Don't know where that came from. So I was like, okay, I'm going to binge watch the rest of Yellowstone, and then I will give it up. And I did.
I'm going to smoke my last cigarette, then I'm going to quit.
I did it. And I told two friends that I knew would be supportive in that. And that sounds silly because I was giving up TV. But I watch, if the TV was on, like my kid, my son was watching a Chiefs game, that's fine. I didn't watch TV on my own, and I had to change that habit at night. And then when I moved, after my divorce, I didn't put a TV in my bedroom. And there's one TV in my house right now. I laugh, I have like 7 TVs in my house. And there's one TV I don't think it's ever been turned on.
Yeah.
Ever since I gave it up for that year, I have a really hard time watching it at all. Because it's like, I don't, like you said, you want to be really intentional about what I allow in. My resources are limited. My energy is limited. My time is limited. Where do I want to place that time and attention on things that are meaningful, not TV?
I think, though, that we are seeing a renaissance of meaningful living. I think that, people go to the national parks and hiking more and things like that. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think our young people need to see that. And I think it's missing in their day-to-day realities.
They need connection with
it's
family.
like I went to dinner with my son-in-law and my daughter and her family. And my wife was with us. And at one point she said, hey, take a picture of, so-and-so. I said, I don't have my phone. What do you mean you don't have your phone? I said, I left it in the car. Who's calling me?
Right.
On a Friday night at 8 o'clock. I mean, I don't need my phone. And she looked at me like, you left your phone in the car? Why don't we all do that, right? Why don't we all start when we're going to a social event and just leave our phone in the car? I mean, seriously, even the speaking event that I met you at.
Right.
Why don't we just all leave our phones in the car? You're speaking there next month,
Yes.
right? And I'm going to let you talk about that in a second. But I want to thank you, Kori.
Well, thank you.
For being here.
My brain's still going so many different directions.
Well, it sounds like you and I could go on this
know.
topic for a long time. But
Yeah.
Kori
I appreciate
Bloom,
the opportunity.
Kori
so
Bloom
thank you, Don.
Lauritsen.
Yeah.
You use all three names all the time? Or?
So Bloom is my maiden name.
Okay.
And when I got married, I took it as my middle name. And then when I got divorced, his last name's Lauritsen,
Sure.
so it's just easier
Continuity
if I keep it. So for
them.
business, Kori Bloom.
Okay. And that's your website?
Yep, KoriBloom.com.
Okay. And you're speaking?
At the KC B2B at the venue on the 22nd of July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. This has been fascinating. And like I said, we could go on
I
for
know.
another
I'm like,
hour.
oh, my brain has not stopped.
Yeah. So, maybe we do this again in the future, because I find it fascinating. But I really do believe, if I can encourage you to do one thing with this, is help our sophomore through senior year students and their parents see the alternatives that exist for them. That it isn't just dropping a couple $100,000 on a college somewhere and hoping for the best. That there are intentional things that you can do today that will lead to a great life if you just open your mind and parents too. I mean, parents have this notion that, oh, my kid's got to go to college.
Well, and the whole focus on, like I said earlier, grades. It's like, no, be a good human, make good choices.
Be a good person.
Critically think. Yes. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay.